Assalamualaikum everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This free webinar is proudly organized by Ilham Childcare, but we also have our guest speakers and friends from the neighboring countries. All of them are very experienced in early childhood education and development. Before we start, and while we wait for more of you to come on board for the live broadcast, let me introduce myself. My name is Shahidah Angullia. I'm the director and co-founder of Ilham Childcare and Aimsparke International Preschool, Australia. I'm also a mother of 4 children, which is why I'm very eager to learn more from our speakers today, because the topic of discussion is extremely relevant in today's time and age. Now at Ilham Childcare, we provide an inclusive and holistic curriculum for all of our students. Recently, we implemented digital learning into our list of free enrichment program, which is our 9th enrichment program. And I think it's really important to get parents and other educators on board to discuss this topic of digital learning for young children. For today's webinar, our guest speakers will be sharing about digital learning and digital literacy for preschoolers, but in their own respective niche and country. How interesting that will be, wouldn't it? I honestly think that we have an interesting panel of speakers coming from Singapore, Malaysia, and Australia. And I'm pretty sure that we are going to have an insightful discussion today. So should you have any questions or comments that you wish to get across during this live webinar, please feel free to send it through the comment section that you see on your screen. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar with all our speakers on screen to answer your questions. So definitely don't miss out on that. All right, now, so without further ado, let me introduce our first guest speaker. Mr. Ashraf is a very experienced individual who focuses on specialized educational services for children with learning disabilities. He's also the co-founder of Aimsparke Private Limited, Australia. It's an enrichment center in Melbourne that provides many different types of lessons for young children. So let's bring on Mr. Ashraf to the screen. Assalamualaikum, Mr. Ashraf.
Waalaikumsalam, Shahidah. Hello, nice to see you. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for taking the time to join us for Ilham Goes Digital webinar today, despite being so far away in Melbourne, Australia. So would you like to introduce yourself to everyone at home?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashraf Samsudin. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the education industry, more specifically in the learning needs or the learning disabilities industry for a good 15, coming to 16 years, I believe, if I get my math correct. And for the past 14 years or so, I was in Singapore, working with the Dyslexia Association of Singapore, doing a multitude of things. From teaching, curriculum development, center management, teacher training. So I've done most of that. So I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to lead a division towards the last 5 years there. So I got the opportunity to develop programs for students with dyslexia, dysgraphia, as well as dyscalculia. Then I decided that my family and I needed a breath of fresh air and a change of environment. So we decided to pack our bags and move to Australia, and we chose Melbourne. So right now we're in Melbourne, and over here I'm also still in doing things in the same line. And along the way we have decided to embark on a new venture, and that's how Aimsparke is formed. So Aimsparke, really, the whole idea is to be able to bring the best that education has to offer to kids as young as 2 years old and as old as 18 years old. So we want to bring the best of educational practices to these students so it can benefit everyone, not only students with learning disorders. So that's
amazing. Amazing. So just wondering, why did you choose special needs education as your niche?
Oh, I actually stumbled across special needs in a way. I've always been, number one, an advocate for those who are underprivileged and what do you call the underdogs? Yeah, because I saw myself as an underdog when I was in school. So I didn't think that I did very well, and I always thought that I needed to struggle or put in a bit more effort as compared to my other friends who seem to be able to breeze through the education system quite easily. So I was wondering, hey, why can my friends do work so easily and I seem to struggle a bit more and I needed to put in more effort? So then I reflected and I thought that I think there's a lot more students who are like me, and that in a way provided the impetus or the spark to do what I do, in a way to help students who are the underdogs in school, especially in mainstream school, knowing how competitive life in a Singapore school can be.
All right, thank you for that. So perhaps you want to share with us and the viewers how digital learning aids children with special needs.
Yeah, so digital learning aids covers quite a broad range of things and tools, essentially. So specifically for students with learning disorders or learning disabilities, for example, like dyslexia, dysgraphia, or dyscalculia. Number one, I think digital learning aids provide students with almost like a visual scaffold to enable them to learn more effectively, to be able to help free up their working memory so that they're able to focus on other things. So digital learning aids can also act as assistive tools sometimes. So for example, if let's say you're talking to a high school student who is dyslexic, right? So these students may utilize technology like speech to text or text to speech to help them write their essays a bit better. So that's also another form of assistive tool. Students in the younger age groups, like the preschoolers or those students who are in primary 1 or in year 1, they would be able to utilize digital learning aids to help them with their literacy acquisition as well as their numeracy acquisition. I may be able to show some of you later on, some of this technology later on, yeah?
All right,
Yeah.
so perhaps you're talking about technology. So how can technology be used as a tool to bridge between typical developing children and children with additional needs?
So those type of technologies you would be referring to would be what we would call as assistive technology. Yeah. So when I was at a conference a few years back, and this was a conference I think in the United States. So they were saying that technology is will level the playing field for students with learning disorders, and I think they're quite right, especially in the era of COVID nowadays. And what that essentially means is that if you think about something physical, so for example, if you can't see properly, right, and you go to an optician and the optician says that, oh, you need a pair of glasses. Now the pair of glasses is like a piece of technology. Of course, in the modern day, we don't really see that as a piece of technology, but it is. It is a device that helps you to perform your function a bit better. Right. So similarly, a student with dyslexia, for example, they would have difficulties with reading, writing, and spelling. So utilizing an assistive technology like a speech to text or text to speech will actually enable them to bypass some of these difficulties that they have. So if someone has difficulties with reading, right, and they are not able to read fluently on the screen or on any web page, then they would be able to utilize the text to speech software to just highlight the text, and then you have the computer read back to you whatever the text is. Or if someone has difficulties with writing, and that's dysgraphia, then they would be able to utilize a speech to text, whereby they would be able to just talk and the software would do its job to be able to convert their speech into text, right? So that's an example of how it can level up the playing field. In terms of being able to bridge the gap between the typical developing children and children with additional needs, of course, the education system has got some way to go. Over here in Melbourne, they are already starting to allow certain devices like a text-to-speech pen, for example, a reading pen, they call it, and that is allowed in the exams. Right? I know Singapore, they might not allow that yet. But actually, to be totally inclusive, exams I think should allow more use of technology. So, for example, a child with handwriting difficulties should be allowed, or upon the recommendation of the psychologist, to use a computer or a keyboard to write their answers down instead of being asked to handwrite because that just slows them down, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense actually. And you mentioned software and apps. So are there any recommended apps or software which both children with additional needs and typical developing children can use? And what would you
Oh,
recommend?
there's too many for me to mention in a breath. But typically, I would be using. I mean, my area is really in language literacy as well as numeracy. So in terms of phonics, I have a couple of softwares that I prefer to use. One of them would be a Sounds Right software, and that would enable me to teach phonics online quite nicely. The other one is there are various apps that I use, like IWW, and that's short for, let me just give me a second. Yeah, I forgot the name again. I Write Words. That's the name of the app, and that's on iPad as well. And that helps with letter formation, right? And there's other software that helps with numeracy as well, like Native Numbers, which focuses and targets on number sense. That's also helpful for my students who are a bit more technology savvy. And there's, of course, a lot of other softwares like phonemic awareness, Bubbles, which is a fun game for you to practice with kids' phonemic awareness skills. And there's a whole list.
That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Now, since you are your niche is special needs education, would you be incorporating this aspect in your new venture, Aimsparke?
Yeah, whenever appropriate, yes, we will, of course, try all of our means to incorporate technology in. So, for example, in the event that COVID hits and COVID happens, we will need to be prepared that we will need to be able to deliver our educational services online. So that would enable the utilization of technology to its very maximum. Of course, there are certain shortcomings in which technology is not able to fully achieve. But I think that is the area that we need to explore and perhaps bridge the gap. Other than that, we would be able to utilize technology to, I would say, complement our face-to-face instruction. Now, that's the area that I think that I'm particularly quite keen in terms of how do we leverage on technology to enhance instruction, to enhance learning, to enhance teaching, to enable more effective lessons to be conducted in a shorter duration of time. Beyond that, of course, technology can also be utilized to help teachers to lesson plan, to help in the communication between teachers as well as parents. So technology need not be limited to just the classrooms, but also it can be extended to beyond the classroom to be able to benefit all parties, all stakeholders in the picture.
Right. So, just a question though. Would Aimsparke, with you being one of the co-founders, would they also be accepting children of special needs, with who are dyslexic, who have,
Yes. So we will be able to help in particular students with learning disorders. Yeah, in particular students with dyslexia, dysgraphia, as well as dyscalculia, because the approaches that we utilize are friendly, especially for these students who are at that age to be at risk of a learning disorder. Yes.
That's amazing. I'm sure I understand you might be starting something in the north of Melbourne really soon in term 2. So that's wonderful.
Inshallah.
And I'm
Inshallah, if
sure
everything goes
the
well.
people from Melbourne will be able to benefit a lot from your inclusive enrichment. Now, I remember just now you wanted to share something with us.
Yeah, I just realized I can't share screen. Can I share a screen? Can I? I can?
I don't think so.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just try. Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, just give me a while.
All right. Let's put technology to the test. Yes. Meanwhile, viewers, please send your questions through the comment section, and you can stay tuned for the Q&A session at the end of the webinar.
Aha, I think I may be able to do it. Can you see my screen? No?
No, unfortunately, no.
No.
I don't think so. Are you able to show us, perhaps, do you have any hard copy of it?
No, it's actually a digital app that I wanted to show you.
Oh, all right.
Okay, hold on. Let's try this. Can you see me? Can you see my screen?
I can see you. I can't see your screen.
You can't? You can see
You
me. You
can
can see my screen,
perhaps
yeah?
you can try clicking share screen. The share
Yeah, I
button
did.
over
I
there.
did.
Okay.
Yeah, it says that I've lost, Chrome has lost the ability for me to share. So I think I can't do it,
All right. It's okay.
unfortunately.
Maybe
So maybe
maybe you
next
can
time.
share with us. Share with us what app that you wanted to show, and then maybe
So
the
this is
viewers can, go and experiment on their own.
So this is the Sounds Right app that I'm currently using in my practice. So essentially, this app will allow me to communicate with my student online, and they would be able to manipulate, in a way, letter tiles so that they're able to form words together with me. The other thing that I wanted to show you, so we are able to like manipulate letter tiles together. So for example, if I'm forming the word match, so it goes like that, right?
Mm.
So the word is, let's say the word is pot. So
Okay.
imagine these are all letter tiles on the screen. So I'm able to tell you, Shahidah, could you spell for me the word top, right? Then I'll hand over control to you, Shahidah, and then you'll be able to, okay, top, what's the first sound? Then you would say t. And then you would be able to, not me, you would be able to move the letter tile t down here, and then you proceed to the next one. What's the next one? Oh, then you would be able to do the next one and followed by the last one, and then you are then able to read the word out for me. Subsequently, you would also be able to write the whole word top over here. So not only are you able to
Wow.
manipulate the
So
letter
I
tiles,
can
you're
just
able to
write
read
with my
and also
mouse.
to write. Yes.
Not with
So
my
if I
mouse.
were to do it over Zoom, for example, I would be able to hand control over you, hand control of the screen over to you, and you would be able to manipulate the screen just like you are the user. But we can't do it in StreamYard because StreamYard is, I think, specific for streaming. Yeah.
So how old will be? What is the appropriate age for the child to be able to maneuver independently?
Um. So these sort of activities, a child would need to be typically about, I would say, 5 years old.
Okay.
They should be able to do this as long as they can understand my instructions. There are other sort of activities that I wanted to also show you that you could use using PowerPoint, and that typically can be done together with their parents. Yeah, and that could be done as early as what, 3, 4. We could do it together, and you could be, instead of manipulating letter tiles, you could be manipulating what do you call it? Like digital chips.
I see. Wow, that's
Circle chips. Yeah.
amazing.
So you could do that online as well. Yeah.
I see. So what was the app just now that you do this? What was the name of the app again? So we just want to repeat for the viewers.
Yeah, so this is called the Sounds Right app. There's also the Sounds Right app that's found on the iPad. This one is actually unique for the smart board hardware. Yeah, yeah, that you can actually consider using.
Yeah, Ilham Childcare has that. Actually, we have the smart board interactive. It's like a huge. It's a huge, like a huge iPad. We have that in our center.
Good,
So that is something
good.
that we can
So it
actually.
looks like there are grounds for a collaboration between Aimsparke and Ilham. Then I can go down there and maybe teach you guys how to use it.
Definitely. So this has been a very interesting session with Mr. Ashraf. Thank you so much, Mr. Ashraf, for sharing with us your expertise as well as your knowledge with everyone. Really enjoyed having you here on board of our first for our first webinar. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
pleasure's all mine, Madam Shahidah. Thank you very much. Pleasure to
Thank
be
you.
here.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care. So thank you everyone. Is for still tuning in. That was Mr. Ashraf from Aimsparke Private Limited, Melbourne, Australia. Now, up next, we're going to fly all the way to Malaysia. And we have Teacher Farah, our guest speaker from Kuala Lumpur. So she is the head of education department for Genius Aulad, an international preschool based in Malaysia that has a very unique curriculum which explores and nurtures through songs, arts, and storytelling, making lessons fun and less stress for children. Fondly known as Teacher Farah, she has a lot of experience under her belt, and she looks forward to sharing that with all of us. So let's bring on Teacher Farah. Hi, Assalamualaikum, Teacher Farah, all the way from Malaysia, joining us. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing well in Malaysia. And thank you for taking the time to join us today. So would you like to introduce yourself and Genius Outlet to our viewers? Sorry, Teacher Farah. Tak dapat dengar. We can't hear you, Teacher Farah. Okay, now we can hear you.
Meeting technology. Okay. Right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Farah Hanisah, but again, I'm fondly known as Teacher Farah. I've been in the education industry for almost 10 years now, and I've taught a variety of ages, starting from primary, secondary, and finally falling in love with preschool. Genius Aulad, I'm the head of education in Genius Aulad International Group. We are a preschool education business, a franchise business that currently has 70 centers across Malaysia and one in Indonesia. And our parent company is Genius Education Group, who also has a string of schools under them, like 𝙒𝙍𝙀𝘀 School and Sekolah Tinta and teachers training and also infrastructure under them. Okay, this idea of having an education business came to our founders 20 years ago. Why they founded this was because they find that there's a gap in the education industry where some children might not fit into certain stereotypical schools. Hence, this was what they had 20 years ago, and Alhamdulillah, now we are a proud franchisee of 70 centers.
Oh, amazing. Alhamdulillah. So perhaps you would like to share with the viewers your experience with bringing stories alive through digital learning.
Okay, so storytelling has always been our niche, our specialty, our practice that we try to practice every day. So there is no doubt that doing storytelling face to face and online is very, very different, right? So if they are live students, if they're in front of us, they can actually touch, feel, and actually be in the mood when we're doing storytelling. However, it's difficult to get that when it is online. So we believe that teachers, however, has this ability to actually bring stories alive. So when we're doing storytelling online, like on Zoom and such, we believe that the teacher's movements and facial expressions and interesting voices control is good enough to complement the touch and feel that they're lacking online. So for example, I'm going to show an example, okay? So please bear with me. I'm going to bring the character of the three bears in Goldilocks. Are you familiar with that story? Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna just be the three bears. Okay, for example, someone has been eating my porridge, said Father Bear in a deep, loud voice. Someone has been eating my porridge, said Mother Bear in a sweet, soft voice. Someone has eaten my porridge and finished them all, said Baby Bear in a sobbing, tiny voice. This is something that all teachers, I believe all teachers can actually do.
Amazing, Taffy! I love that. That was really good. Love it, love it. Was really good. So that is how your team actually utilize digital learning during the prolonged MCO period. So they will
Yeah.
need to be very engaging through
Mm-hmm.
the screen, from
Mm-hmm.
one screen to another, literally. Are there any other methods besides, the teacher being extra creative or very full of expressions? Are there any other methods that your team utilizes using digital learning for the students?
As Mr. Ashraf mentioned, we don't have yet and using apps or very advanced technology because of our limitations in terms of we have so many centers to monitor, and we're a franchise business, and it's hard to monitor that every center would do the same thing, every children would gain the same objectives. Hence we try to focus more on the online teaching. So right now what we have in Jenis Aulad is, since some parents are still reluctant to send their children to schools, yeah, so we've created this thing called online hybrid learning. Although hybrid does not mean half and half. Hybrid is more of they're doing exactly the same things that they normally do in live classes, in physical classes, but instead doing it online. For now, that is what we have gone through, but we are still, trying to better ourselves, and try to put in acts like what Mr. Ashraf are doing at his center.
All right. So how can we ensure that, for example, students who miss school, let's say students who do not have access to technology, how or very limited access to technology, how do Genius Outlet ensures that they don't miss lessons or they don't fall behind during the MCO period?
Okay, MCO happened. In Malaysia we have so many school holidays. Okay, so during the first MCO announcement, it somehow happens during our school holiday, right in the middle of the school holiday. So basically, all the teachers and all the children are basically in their hometowns, with very limited access to internet, very limited access to technology. However, to understand the syllabus in Jenis Aulad, we are very the syllabus is designed so that it will not be it's very flexible. It's very flexible. Although we have some guidelines, some objectives to fulfill by the end of the year, we do make sure that the learning, despite having very limited face-to-face interactions, is still fulfilled. Example, like giving homeworks, giving access, giving training to parents on how to teach at home, and basically educating parents on how to teach at home. Yeah, I think that's what we did to cover up for what was left during MCO. And also, what we did last year was we prolonged how school is supposed to end in November. We
Mhm.
prolonged the second up to December just to cover up, just in case they have missed anything.
That's amazing that the school and the teachers are able to adapt, as well as the parents and the students, to ever changing policies last year and throughout this year as well, even currently. So I understand that Genius Outlet also uses brain exercises. Am I right to say that? So, how can
Okay, yeah.
technology be used to assist in brain exercises or even bringing stories to life? Okay, you have exemplified just now how you bring stories alive. How about brain exercises?
Okay, brain exercise is just basically activities that they can do to make sure that they stay focused. Brain exercises to ensure that our left and right brain are connected, our hand and eye coordination is aligned, and stuff like that. So I believe this question is it's about engagement. I think engagement, how you engage with the children. Yeah, it's important to ensure that when you are teaching online, children stays focused. Hence, before we start any lesson, we will go with some brain exercises. Some of you might be familiar with brain gym. I think it's very similar to that. Uh, and as simple as, and maybe you can do this together if you want to.
Okay.
Let's try this. Can you show me your thumb?
Okay. 2 times or 1
Show
thumb?
me your pinky.
My pinky. Okay. Pinky,
Thumb
sorry.
and pinky. Thumb and pinky. One hand thumb, one hand pinky. And
Okay.
then what you do is you try to change it.
Oh, slow ni ai. Macam ni.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Now you change.
Ah,
Now you change. Now you change. Now you change.
kejap.
See?
Ni tak
You're
change.
missing a part. So it's so difficult. So how to do
Mana
this
dah tua
actually?
ni.
To focus.
Kalau
Tak
ni
boleh
tak
pusing.
boleh ni. Dah tua
Like that. Okay, so basically this one, it's supposed to help your right and left brain to connect, to actually send messages to each other, saying now right hand thumb, left hand pinky, and then change. So you actually
Oh,
have
it's
to
not
focus. So
easy.
this is how to get the children's to focus, and also to get them to ready for the lesson. Okay, let's have one more example.
Yes, please. That was so interesting. And I realized I have to practice. I think the viewers, you have to try, okay? If you're viewing this, it's actually really not easy. I'm very confused. Okay, maybe you show us one more example that the
Okay,
parents
just
can
one more. Okay,
also do with the children.
sure. Okay, now with your left hand, tap your head.
Left hand.
Tap your head, and
Okay.
your right hand, you rub your belly.
Oh, all right.
Okay, rub your belly. Okay, and now you change. Okay, tap head, rub belly, and then now you change. Tap head, rub belly. Tap head, rub belly.
Oh, ni okey sikit. Agaknya pasal ada biasa rub belly tak?
Yeah.
Lapar kot.
So mostly what happens is normally you tend to rub your hair.
Oh,
Oh.
really? I did. I rub my head. Okay.
That's what mostly happens if you're very new to this exercise. So again, this is to connect the right and left brain and the hand-eye coordination. There are so many other examples that you can find online, but these are the ones that we practice every day before our lesson. There's also things like Easy 8, that is to help with penmanship. Also, what do you call this? Attention grabber. Have you heard of an attention grabber? Attention grabber. For example, when I say class, you say yes, class. You say yes.
Sekejap tak
Okay,
dengar.
so that is what
We're losing a bit of connection. We're losing a bit of connection je. Maybe you want to repeat. Just repeat tadi. Macam dia lag
Okay,
sikit.
so that is okay. So can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so basically, apart from doing stories come alive and then bringing stories alive, and then we also what do you call this stuff? Brain exercise. You can also do attention grabber. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but if, for example, when I say class, you say yes, class,
Yes, class.
class, yes, yes. That is
Yes.
one of the examples that also when doing teaching online, I do feel that these things are needed because to understand that children's attention span is very, very limited, very, very short. Hence, we need all these extra interactive activities to get them engaged in our lesson.
Wow, this is amazing. I love it. I enjoyed myself so much, and I'm sure the viewers did enjoy and they learned so much from your teacher, Farah. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on digital learning and your knowledge as well. Please, we'll remove you from the screen, but don't go off. We're gonna bring you right back here as well later on for the Q&A session. Okay, thank you so much, teacher Farah.
Thank you so much for sharing that for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. So I'm sure everybody had a bit of fun just now. We were engaged and we tried those exercises. So right now, we're going to have one last speaker with us. We have Mr. Hadi, our guest speaker from Singapore. Now, Mr. Hadi is one of my colleagues in the senior management team with more than 10 years of teaching experience. Mr. Hadi is a favorite amongst our Ilhamites at the East. Despite the challenges that he faced as a male early childhood educator, his passion for children and all things digital led him to where he is now. Now, he currently leads the digital learning enrichment at Ilham Childcare, which is a free enrichment that is provided to all our students from N2 to K2 And I'd just like to add that it was teacher Hadi, who is our ICT champion, who initiated the 9th free enrichment in Ilham, which is our digital learning enrichment. So let's bring him on. Teacher Hadi. Hi, Assalamualaikum, Teacher Hadi. So how's everything at the center? It's all good, and how are you?
Waalaikumsalam, Madam Shahidah. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing great, and I'm really excited to share more about digital learning in the classroom.
Okay.
So far, so
So
good.
maybe you want to introduce yourself?
Can, no problem. So hello everyone, as you might have known already. My name is Hadi, and I have been in the early childhood industry in Singapore since 2010. When I first entered Temasek Polytechnic, pursuing diploma in early childhood studies. So over the years, I managed to further my studies as well as be involved in different areas that help not just children but other teachers to develop and learn in various ways in this early childhood field itself. I'm currently holding the position of teaching vice principal in Ilham Childcare, and I've been given countless of opportunities to showcase my capabilities, such as curricular planning and also teachers training. And recently, it was with regards to digital learning in the classroom. So I have always wanted to make a difference in people's life, and why not start with molding the future generation, right? So yes, here I am, and I'm always a strong advocate for not just male preschool teachers, parental education, and children's special needs, but also finding ways to make learning more fun and engaging away from the conventional way of teaching, like how a classroom teaching should be like. So here I am sharing with you more about how easy it is to incorporate digital learning in the classroom.
Right, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for the introduction, to, Mr. Hadi. So, should I call you Mr. or Teacher Hadi? Which one do you
Both is
prefer?
fine for me.
Okay. So maybe you would like to share with the viewers what Ilham Childcare does for digital learning enrichment program.
So currently, Ilham Childcare is piloting a program on digital learning as part of our free enrichment program for our N2 to K2 children, aged 4 to 6 years old. Digital learning as an enrichment program is more than just using a tablet or laptop to watch videos or just increasing the screen time, you know. It is really using the elements of technology to assist children in exploring things in a variety of ways. And for this enrichment itself that we are piloting this year, the topics and subject focus that we have in every term comes up to the following, which is firstly photography, videography, audio application, and software app application. So they will be taught and introduced in various levels of difficulties from N2 to K2. So different types of photography, such as landscape, taking pictures of the environment, on how to use the basic usage of a camera in a tablet itself. Same goes for videography, to take normal videos, to plan out a storyline for the video, and hopefully make a short story or film to be showcased at the end of every term. And audio application is some things like be a newscaster, be a podcaster, which we hope in times to come we can put it in Spotify if it's possible. And it will be, as much as it will be facilitated by teachers, it will be done by children itself. So yes, so those are what encompasses of the digital learning enrichment in Ilham Childcare.
So, Mr. Hadi, I call you Mr. lah. Once in a while, I call you Mr. Okay, so usually I call him Hadi. So, okay, Mr. Hadi. So, we all are very thankful, to be very honest, because as ICT champion, you initiated digital learning enrichment in Ilham Childcare. So, perhaps you would like to share with all of us what drove you to include this enrichment.
I guess it all started off with us preschool teachers having the need to provide home-based learning to our preschool children during the circuit breaker, which is lasted for around 2 months or so. Obviously, it is quite a shock to a lot of teachers to suddenly bring physical setting of lesson in the classroom to online. Even I myself have difficulties in doing it at the start, because I would definitely prefer having a physical setting with children in front of me. So moreover, as there are more tighter regulations due to COVID, we also decided when we come back to school, why not bring learning into the classroom, and the simplest and effective way to do it, which I believe is to use the technology. And from there onwards, when we begin to start schooling again, I tried to include usage of technology as part of the lesson plans. Since I started, the children will seem to be more eager in lessons, are more participative, are more involved in the lesson, and will usually bring back home whatever that they have learned and share with their parents. So more of the sharing comes from the children, and that really helps me a lot in telling the parents what they have been doing in the classroom itself. So what drove Ilham to include this enrichment is basically because we see the need and the importance of it during the circuit breaker itself. So we are piloting this up this year.
Amazing. So, maybe you would like to share some of the key factors for making online course effective. As you mentioned that during the circuit breaker, Ilham had to go online as well. Perhaps you would like to share an SAT and as an ICT champion. What are some of the ways to make it interesting if it's online?
Definitely a good question there. I guess it's similar to having an online course in a physical setting. So any type of course in a physical setting, pre-planning, knowing what to deliver, the contents of the program flow itself, knowing the contents of the subject matter and topics to be delivered. But the additional things in an online course itself or home-based learning is that we need to take note of the usage of technological devices such as the laptop, having a good video quality of the webcam, audio equipment, whether our voices can be heard well, are there any background noises, and most importantly is to have a stable and strong connection. As for what, and additionally itself for home-based learning or online course, what works for me is to always find things that are readily available at home. If you require the children or even our participants to have or use during the online course itself. I mean, one example that I did previously would be to use of any kitchen tools, safe kitchen tools such as a pot, a pan, spoon, spatula, those kind of things, to create an ensemble music together in during that Zoom session itself. So we have to not just think about what we want the children to do, but what the children can do over at the other screen. So those are some of the things that we need to consider apart from all the pre-planning and the knowledge content of the course itself. So yes.
Right, that's amazing. Okay, now I understand that some of the contents or the modules that Ilham Childcare digital and literacy has includes things like Canva, what do you call that? Podcasts. So these are very advanced what do you call it, knowledge or digital online learning or tools that are being used, and these are being taught to students who are 4 to 6 years old. Perhaps you would like to share with us how are the children responding to digital learning in the classroom?
I guess since I started and up the way till now, which I've tried to incorporate a lot of technological tools in my lesson itself, the children seem to still be very excited every time I want to bring out my laptop and my projector and the screen itself, and they are more involved and participative in the classroom. Even those who are shy in nature, you can see that they really grown from a shy person to someone who really talks a lot, who really asks questions, answer questions without any boundaries. So introducing all these elements itself and using the app allows them to explore learning in a different manner, but at the same time meeting the objectives and the needs of every child of that age itself. So, I mean, using technology in the classroom, the apps like you mentioned, Canva, even Spotify, all of these are in a way age and developmentally appropriate if we as teachers know what we want them to achieve at the end of the day. So that's the most important part. So far right now, the students have been enjoying it.
Oh, that's great. That's good. I'm sure the students are so excited as well. Now, how do you, as parents, we are always very concerned with the screen time that kids are exposed to. Now, what will you do when parents feedback and perhaps they are concerned and request for lower usage of screen time in the classroom? Of course, we don't, Ilham Childcare doesn't use screen time or expose the kids to screen time, but perhaps parents do not quite clear at times. They feel that anything digital learning is equal to iPad or iPhone or laptop. So how do you, as a teacher and someone who is in charge of this program, explain to the parents with regards to their concern?
Definitely, this is one of the things that we were thinking about on how do we respond to parents when we were to introduce this digital learning enrichment in the classroom itself. So personally, what I feel we can do is to before anything else, is to preempt the parents that we are incorporating technology in the classroom and explain to them on how is it going to be like. Because incorporating technology in the classroom is more than just having screen time or the usage of iPad, just one iPad and one child like that. It's more than just that, or even video watching. It is about using it as an assistive tool, just like what Mr. Ashraf has shared with you just now. So with children with special needs, it's how we use it to bridge between having physical communication with the child, and for Ilham itself is how we bridge the communication between the teachers and all the children in the classroom. It's not just having differentiated learning, but also to cater to every child's need in a way. And it's
Sorry, just
the
one
use.
question I wanted to ask, because you mentioned allocating to every child's need. So I'm just wondering, Ilham Childcare has special needs students. So when you say it allocates to every child's need, does it mean that it's also possible in a classroom setting to use digital learning and its tools to engage a special needs child as well?
Yes, definitely. Because most times the use of technology is being done at home as well, no matter whether it's typical developing children or children with special needs. So when we were to bring this kind of tools in the classroom, they will definitely have that kind of interest ready. Even without having to show the apps, we bring the tool itself inside the classroom. They would be willing to be there and in a way having a longer attention span than expected for children with special needs. So using technology itself in the classroom does not only like Mr. Ashraf has shared and what I've shared just now, not to only apply it for typical developing children, but also children with special needs. Because in a way, we as teachers need to know how are we going to use it for both group of children. How can we be more inclusive in using this kind of technology and assistive device in the classroom? How can they learn in a way the same contents as typical developing children? So definitely having technology and having the competencies to do it is very important in allowing both group of children, any group of children, to be involved in the lessons.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Hadi, for sharing your insights. And Ilham Childcare is super lucky to have you as our ICT Champion MVP. Thank you so much, Mr. Hadi. We're going to see you in a while.
Thank you so
Mr. Hadi,
much.
going to see you in a while, okay? So don't go off yet. Okay, thank you. Wow. So I definitely enjoyed the insightful sharing by all our speakers, and I hope that you did too. That was the reason why my team and I wanted to organize this live discussion. We hope to continue sharing with the public about the usefulness of digital literacy at a young age and how can we fully utilize the technology that is available to us in this modern age. Now, you're almost at the end of the webinar, but before that, we're going to bring all of our guest speakers back on screen to answer some of the questions from our viewers. Let's bring everyone back. Teacher Farah, Mr. Hadi, Mr. Ashraf. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you once again for the really honest and genuine sharing just now. Now, to all of our audience, whether you're viewing through Facebook or YouTube, simply locate the comment sections of this video and submit your questions. So feel free to direct the question to a specific speaker if you like. For Mr. Ashraf, Mr. Hadi, and Teacher Farah, the questions will simply appear on the screen and we can all answer them together. Okay, so how about that? So shall we start with our first question from the audience? We have our first question. All right, so I'm going to read out the question. Question from Madam Aida, Anak Saleh. So what topics will you be covering for digital learning and literacy? What age will teachers be starting the kids to start digital learning? I think this question, there's no anybody. Okay, how about everyone? You can answer a bit. You know, if it applies to you, what topics will you be covering for digital learning and literacy, and what age would teachers be starting the kids to start digital learning? Let's start with Teacher Farah.
Okay, I think I've mentioned this earlier. We don't, in GDS Aulad, we don't really have a specific set time for digital learning. However, we incorporate this, like Ilham Childcare, we also have a smart board in our centers. So we try to use this as much as we can. but it's limited to only that because we don't have laptops in every classroom, kept for every child. We don't have that. However, yes, we are moving towards having online classes more, and having hybrid lessons, inshallah. So the second question: what age would teachers be starting the kids to start digital learning? I think this is there's no direct definite age when to start digital learning. They can be exposed at a young age. However, what's important is to educate the parents, teachers, and even the children on the usage and the rules and regulations on how to use digital learning. That's what's
Right.
important.
Thank you, Teacher Farah. Mr. Hadi, would you like to answer that question as well?
I think for me personally, like I've shared just now, it's more of the teacher knowing what they want to teach the children and what they hope the children can achieve at the end of the lesson by introducing digital learning or technology in the classroom itself. It can be as simple as using video, watching a video, analyzing the video, and after that, recapping on the video itself on what's happening inside the video. Example, can be used as if we are learning about MRT train stations, they can use it because right now in YouTube we do have videos of MRT train stations saying each names of the stations itself. So from there itself, it's not just solely depending on it, but using it as an assistive tool. So it can be used even like during gross motor warm-ups. We can do any Zumba sessions by using videos to showcase to children how this dance movement can be done. So it can be as young as 3 years old, 4 years old to learn about digital learning and literacy itself. From there itself, then it slowly grows to the different subject matters of what technology can be used in the classroom, such as like what I said, the photography, videography, audio applications, and software application itself. At the end of the
So
day, it's
how
not
about
just
at Ilham? At Ilham Childcare, perhaps maybe you want to share with the viewers what are some of the topics that you have included for your the modules, and what age do they start? It's N2, am I right?
Yes, correct. So for the enrichment itself, digital learning enrichment, it starts at an early age of 4 years old to 6 or 4, 5, 6. So N2, K1, and K2. So the four topics, like I said, photography, videography will be taught in different topics and area of focus, and followed by audio application and app application. So app application, what we have in mind is really to use Illustrator kind of app for them to draw. So every page that they have drawn is a story to tell in a way. And then when they go to K1, they can create their own book. And then in K2, they can create something else together as a class. So it has got to do with illustrations and all that. So it starts from an early age of 4 years old in Ilham Childcare.
Amazing, thank you so much. Okay, for Mr. Ashraf, I'm going to tweak the question a bit. Perhaps based on your expertise and you dealing with kids of in your 15 years or more experience, what age would you actually advise parents to start digital learning?
Yeah, my response to this question would be quite similar to Mr. Hadi and as well as Teacher Farah, just to extend on what they have just said. I think number one, all of us, we need to understand, us being teachers as well as parents, that technology at the end of the day is just another tool that we are using, that teachers have at their disposal in our bags, right? So currently, previously, the only tools that we may have would be pen, paper, maybe the OHP, and some videos that we have. But currently, we have the use of technology, we have the use of iPads, we have the use of computers, smart boards, and etc. So what needs to be clear is how are we going to use this tool to achieve what sort of purpose? If it's student engagement, then we can use videos for perhaps to provide a good model in which to show kids how to write, in which to show kids on how best to use a camera, or to go to Egypt, for example, for language development. And that's a good use of a piece of technology. However, if the piece of technology, if the tool is placed in the hands of someone who is not clear about how to use the tool or knowing how to use the tool effectively, then it becomes detrimental to the development of the child. So that's something that we need to be careful of. So in terms of when we start using technology to help kids with learning, it actually depends on the teacher, actually. Of course, we are mindful about things like screen time and all that, but if we expand our definition of technology and digital learning to go beyond the screen, so for example, if I'm using my text-to-speech pen, for example, or if I'm using other pieces of technology that doesn't utilize a screen, then it could be at any age, can it? Arguably, a piece of manipulative that I'm using could also be a piece of technology that I'm using to enhance learning. So it could start at any age. But having said that, within the boundaries of how we would define technology in terms of maybe iPads as well as the screen and all that, so we just would need to be mindful about how much exposure would be, I would say, not detrimental to the development of the child. And I think what is recommended is about 2 hours per day for any children who is below the age of 9 or 10, if I'm not mistaken. But I think you won't exceed that if if teachers have the mindset that they are very purposeful in terms of how they are using their piece of technology. So from the perspective of literacy teaching and literacy learning and teaching special needs kids, again, it is very more specific. It's almost like a surgeon using his scalpel, you know. So I'll be using, again, my piece of tool very sparingly. Arguably, the best tool I have is actually the rapport that I have with my kids. Yeah, because half of learning is actually emotional. If I don't have any sort of rapport with the child, there's no learning that's going to be taking place in the first place. Now, I don't want the child to have a closer relationship to the technology than me, because I'll be offended, number one. So I would want them to have a relationship with me first, the teacher, before they have a relationship with the device.
Right, amazing. Thank you so much to everyone for that response. You're right. I think it's the emotions and the heart that we have to tackle first before everything will actually be smoother. You know, with that establishment of a good relationship between a parent and a child, between a teacher and a child as well. Now, okay, so we have the next question from Jamie Lim. Okay, specifically for Mr. Hadi, is your school using technology to gain efficiencies in old practices or to do things that are truly different? So over to you, Mr. Hadi.
Yes, thank you for this question, Jamie Lim. So basically how Ilham Childcare or the school has been using technology to gain efficiencies in old practices is to really use it, like I kept mentioning, about using it as an assistive tool in conventional way of teaching in the classroom. Not just teachers sitting down on the chair and children sitting down crossing their legs on the floor and us doing a delivery of the lesson itself. It's more of really using it to allow them to be more involved in information gaining, downloading information to themselves even. Because from it itself, sometimes children can even ask questions, what's happening, and then all this will come out with a lot of answers from other children, and even some of the questions that teachers can't even answer it. So we use technology to help us out. Then for a good example would be, right now we have restrictions due to COVID when we want to go for learning journeys. So one of the things that we are able to do with incorporating technology in the classroom itself for the lesson is to bring them in an online learning journey, such as going to the zoo by using Google Maps. Street View, we can just press. We can ask the children where they want to go. And it's not just on a screen itself, on the laptop. We can project it on a bigger screen, on a projector screen. And that is where they will be involved and be learning about animals in the zoo, what directions, left or right, straight or to the back. And all of that meets the requirement of what children of different age is supposed to cover in different learning areas. So definitely it's not just doing things truly different just by solely being dependent on technology itself, but it's to assist us in making things more fun, making things more engaging, and if children are enjoying it, teachers will definitely enjoy it at the end of the day. So yes, that's my answer.
That's amazing. That means you're using, for example, virtual learning journeys, and they can even travel to somewhere else, in fact, to know more about the country. So using technology to your advantage and to the students' advantage. Thank you so much, Mr. Hadi. And I hope that answered your question, Jamie Lim. And we have the next question from Madam Farah Nina. Assalamualaikum from Malaysia. Teacher Farah from Malaysia. Yay. So my question is for Teacher Farah. So can you share some tips for teachers in Malaysia facing the challenges of MCO?
Okay, the mute button does not like me. Okay, so some tips for teachers in Malaysia facing the challenges of MCO. Okay, we understand that before MCO, our teachers are very regardless of age, whatever age they're teaching, we are so limited when it comes to technology. Not every classes are equipped with the right tools and equipments to be doing online lessons, apps and such. So I think tips that you can do during, I assume this is for preschool, yeah? So teaching children at home, from home, working from home and being a teacher online, what you need most is to be engaging with the children. I understand the limitation of the tools, the internet and such. However, try to engage the children as much as you can. You have to understand that children's attention span is very, very limited, and hence you need lots and lots of attention grabbers, like what we had just now, what we did just now, and also lots and lots of brain exercises, brain gym, so that the children stays focused online. I think I've shared like how to do stories come alive. Yeah, bringing stories alive. Being a teacher, I think you have to be fun, you have to be passionate, you have to be patient. Then only you can be a good preschool teacher. You know, it's not just your degree, your diplomas. It is the passion and the patience. Inshallah.
Okay, thank you so much, Teacher Farah, and I hope that answered the question for Madam Farah. Okay, so the next question, please. Question from Madam Nadia Karim. So for Mr. Ashraf, have you designed a hybrid class, which is a combination of virtual and physical class for children with special needs, and how was that?
By a hybrid class, there's a few ways in which you can design a hybrid class. One of which is one which I've mentioned earlier on in my presentation, in which I have, in a way, utilized a tool like the Smartboard software to engage students online. Yeah, because distance learning obviously has its limitations in terms of human interaction. So, the utilization of a software in that manner is a good way for me to be able to at least bridge the gap to compensate for the lack of interaction. A hybrid class could also be seen in older classes, in which I could be using a combination of assistive, I wouldn't say assistive tools. There's two kinds of educational tools. Yeah, one is assistive technology tools. The other one is educational technology tools. Yeah, so assistive technology is really meant to bridge the gap that typical special needs or learning students with learning disorders have difficulties doing, like reading and writing. Then you'll be using assistive tools. Educational technology tools would be, for example, if I'm using an educational app to be teaching sounds, a program like Nessie, for example. So that could be a fun way to be teaching phonics that I could be including in my class instead of me jabbing away. So for example, if I'm teaching 5 sounds in the alphabet, right? So I'm teaching s, a, m, t, p. So 3 of the sounds I could be teaching live. The other 2 sounds I could be using a video. Yeah, so that is just to chop and change and to provide a little bit of variety and novelty into my class. I could do that to enhance engagement. Again, the purpose is clear. Another way for older kids that I've used before to help with engagement is the idea of a flipped classroom. And that essentially is me creating videos ahead of time and getting them to watch these videos first. Yeah. So in a way, the static content is done by them at home. And when they come to me for classes for that 1 hour, then I will be engaging them in face-to-face activities. So that's another way in which you could design a hybrid class for, in fact, not just students with special needs, but for students with other normal, typical abilities as well.
Right, and I'm just a bit curious too. So I just want to ask a bit. So for how's the engagement level for children with special needs? Are they very engaged? For example, with videos, or do you can only, for example, show really short videos? What's your thought
Oh,
on
so
that?
you're talking about attention span, yeah?
Yes.
So with regards to attention span, some students with learning disabilities, in a way, have a limited working memory. So, which means to say that despite how interesting a piece of video can be, if that video is very loaded with content, then after, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes, their working memory would be text, right? In which case you might need to stop and then you just review the content with them verbally, and then you continue with the video. Yeah, so you need to be mindful about the students that you teach and these sort of limitations in terms of working memory, which eventually would affect attention span and therefore their learning capacity. I wouldn't say learning capacity, but they are being able to attend to the details that you're trying to push at them, that typical learners would typically be able to manage, but students with learning disorders might struggle to manage. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Amazing. Thank you for that, Mr. Ashraf. All right. Now for I hope that answered your question, Madam Nadia. And if you actually have further questions, you can always direct them at enquiry@ilhamchildcare.com, and we will assist in getting more answers actually from the speakers. Now on to the next question. Let's see. Question from Madam Mulyani. Regarding the use of technology in education, are there any particular technologies you feel excited about for your individual school? So this is directed to all speakers. Perhaps we can start with Teacher Hadi, Mr. Hadi, sorry.
Hi. For me, I guess it's been an ongoing discussion among the team members about the usage of technology or particular technologies that we feel excited about. And the main thing that we have been talking about is interactive whiteboard or interactive projector, whereby children can interact with the whiteboard, touch the whiteboard. It's like a touch screen kind of thing, and also maybe step on the floor. But it's still in discussion. It's something really very interesting, but what I would hope to look at would be something that it's easily movable and it's something that's light, so that it can be used in every classroom, something portable. So that kind of technology is something that I would look forward to in having this in the school. But it's up for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. So what we have at Ilham right now, as I understand, is a fixed interactive whiteboard. So perhaps something that is movable from one classroom to another. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you so much, Mr. Hadi. How about Teacher Farah? Your thoughts on this?
I guess it's similar to Mr. Hadi because we at our centers we do have our interactive board, but it's only one for each center. So imagine how teachers had to book and fight for to use it. However, we understand the limitations of being a preschool. There might be some limitations in terms of expenses that you can do, and then the smart boards might cost a lot in terms of apa ni services dan juga dia punya maintenance. Hence, I do look forward to having technology that is approachable for all types of children, regardless of their family background, regardless of only schools that are that kind of not many schools can afford having this kind of technology. I hope that in the future there's a technology that even schools in an area that is not as advanced could actually use. Yeah.
I see. Thank you so much, Teacher Farah. How about you, Mr. Ashraf?
For me, I suppose because we're just starting out with Aimsparke, I'm really looking into the future to see, I think, what the future holds for technology. I mean, I'm quite familiar with the interactive whiteboards and all, but I'm really concerned about at this point how we are responding with a lockdown like what COVID has presented us with. And I know the world has responded in a way that is more reactive than responsive. So I would now given that the situation has stabilized in a way, it gives us about a bit of a thinking time to be able to visualize and envisage how best we can respond to a similar situation should it happen again. So looking at the field of technology that's presented in front of us at this present moment, there's actually two advances in technology that currently excites me. One is actually machine learning, and the other one is virtual reality, right?
Wow.
The first one, machine learning. So essentially what is machine learning? Machine learning would be at the heart of AI or artificial intelligence, right? So I've spoken to companies and organizations that has already started looking at machine learning to benefit the educational sector. For one, there's already softwares currently, I think, that has already been developed that utilizes AI or machine learning to be able to detect for dyslexia, for example. So you can just use an app on your handphone, take a picture of a piece of writing, or take an audio recording of someone reading, and through AI or machine learning, it's gonna be able to tell you whether you're at risk of dyslexia within 10 seconds.
Wow,
So that's the
amazing. And
power of
how
yes.
old? How old can we
Any
start
age,
using?
any age.
Wow.
Yeah. So of course that's still in development, and it's by an organization in Melbourne. So that particular technology is actually in Melbourne. So I'm speaking with them. So that's quite interesting. The other one is augmented reality and virtual reality. That's quite interesting. Augmented reality, I would say, is interesting because it does help to complement and to the normal teaching that happens in a classroom. So, for example, how does augmented reality work? I have an iPad with me, and the kids might have an iPad or an iPhone with them. So I have a software like I don't know, any augmented reality software, right? So what I do is the teacher programs it in, and it could be walking around the classroom doing scavenger hunting. So I could be doing photography, for example, and I could be going to the toilet, and when I point the iPad in the direction of the toilet, it converts to Egypt,
Wow.
right? The picture of Egypt comes out, and I could click on Egypt, and a narrative of what Egypt is will be presented before me. So I could be doing a scavenger hunt. I could be doing a worldwide virtual tour of Egypt or any part of the world that I decide to engage my students in. And that really is, I think, what the future holds. The other one is, of course, virtual reality. And that is, I think, not here yet, but it's in the movies already. So you know how I was talking to you about some of the limitations of interactivity over the internet and how I'm using softwares and allow you to interact. So imagine the future whereby I'm able to project myself into the room of the student, and I'm able to see what he or she is doing virtually. And of course, I'll be using my goggles and I'll be looking at him and I'll be guiding him using headphones, right? So it's as if I'm there, but I'm not. But yeah.
I think I can think of many ways of using that technology as well.
That's
Okay,
right.
but thank you so much. That's really interesting. I think you brought up very, very good points, Mr. Ashraf. Thank you so much. I hope I answered your question. And we have one last question for today. Let's see, from Madam Rul Salbia. So what are some of the apps that would be useful in iPad and that we can place this iPad in the learning corner? So I believe this is for all the speakers. Perhaps we want to start with Teacher Farah.
We're not really familiar with having apps. Like I've mentioned, we don't really use it in our centers. However, if Mr. Ashraf or Mr. Hadi can share more, I mean, we would be very glad to, in the future maybe work together and find out how we can make this useful. Inshallah.
Thank you so much, Teacher Farah. Teacher Hadi, would you like to share your thoughts on this?
Hi. Okay. So some of the apps that we can use would be Canva. Canva is readily available in both Android tablets and also even in iPad. That can be done. There's a lot of things that you can use Canva as well. Another app would be Smile and Learn, which is something that Ilham Jalka has been using since circuit breaker period itself. It helps not just in the physical setting of the classroom, but also to allow parents to recap back whatever that has been learned in the classroom back at home as well. It's a two-way kind of thing, and it involves parental involvement. Another app that we have been trying out will be this thing called Pen Up, which is also known as an Illustrator app, which is free. Children can use, can draw, even can not even can draw or even color, can just use it to write sentences, to enhance and engage themselves in language and literacy. Then another app would be VSCO. That is quite a famous photography app itself, where children can learn how to edit pictures, where they take pictures and edit, play around with brightness, contrast, and even different type of colors. Stop motion video studio, so another one to take videos. Podbean, Spotify are all those different kind of apps that you can include in iPad, and it's child friendly. So yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Hadi, for sharing. And lastly, Mr. Ashraf, perhaps you'd like to share?
Yeah.
iPad
Mr. Hadi
version. I know you have shared
quite a lot of good apps already. But just let me mention a few more. Since my area is more focused on literacy as well as numeracy, so I do a lot of work on students to develop their literacy skills from the ground up. So we do a lot of work with the sound, and that's in the area of phonological awareness as well as phonemic awareness. So you have apps like Heart Builder or Syllable Splash that's good for phonological awareness. Or I think I mentioned in particular two that I'm currently using, and that's Sound Beginnings and Phonemic Awareness Bubbles. That's quite good. That's for phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. For phonics, what's good would be a software called Nessie. And Nessie is a very popular software that's based in the UK. It is essentially a program that helps students to review or teach them the letter sound correspondence that we have in our English language. So we have other programs like Sound Literacy or Twinkle Phonics that can be useful for students who are learning phonics. There are also other softwares that looks into fluency and comprehension. That's also quite useful. Programs or apps like 1 Minute Reader, or let me see, 𝙁𝙍𝘀𝘀 Vocabulary by Reading Eggs, and that's more for language development. Vocabulary and Grammar app, that's also quite useful, and that's for vocabulary development. For writing, I mentioned I Write Words, and that teaches you letter formation and handwriting. That's quite good. So kids could just switch on the app and they could do that as more like a follow-up activity for practice for kids. Sentence Builder for kids who are learning to build sentences. That's also quite good. For numeracy, we have Native Numbers and Number Sense HD. You have one quite a cool app on the iPad called Magic Math, I think, and that allows you to, in fact, do instant calculations by just taking photos of the mathematical equation and sums. With regards to assistive technology, currently a lot of the assistive technology has been embedded into a lot of free softwares, namely Office 365. So even if you're using your Microsoft Word, right? So there's this function called Immersive Reader that's now in it that allows text to be read back to you, or for you to be reading to whatever device that you are using, and for that text to be typewritten. Google Docs also has similar functions that you can use, text-to-speech as well as speech-to-text. So those are free softwares that you can use.
Thank you, Mr. Ashraf. So basically, there may be many apps, and one can be easily drowned trying to figure out the apps. As teachers, I feel, for example, like Mr. Hadi has mentioned, Ilham Jalka uses Smile and Learn app is meant to be an extension of what happens in the classroom. So we have to, as teachers, we will need our educators using apps to assist or become their kind of like assistant in the class I think they need to understand their students' needs, they need to understand their students' profiles, and go back to also their objective of the lesson. So in order to have a good balance of using app and face-to-face teaching. Now we have come to the end of the webinar today, our very first webinar. Thank you so much, everyone. And that's all we have time for today. So maybe we can just go around one last time, 1 minute, okay? To just parting words before we end the webinar for all speakers. Okay, let's start with Mr. Ashraf.
Oh, me. So thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon, I believe, and evening for those joining us from Melbourne. It has certainly been a time well spent sharing with you some strategies and some thoughts of ours with regards to digital learning. And hopefully it has bore some fruit in terms of giving you some ideas in terms of how you can better engage your students both in school as well as at home. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ashraf. And let me see, how about Teacher Farah?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me and listening to Speld for 1 hour. And we've shared some very insightful content today. And I personally have learned so much. And and we are in Malaysia. We are trying to get to where you guys are now, inshallah. As a teacher, please remember. I just like this quote. Children do. Remember, we are the adult, we are the parents, we are the teacher, we are their mirror. So, yeah, but just hopefully make dua that the future of our children will be better, inshallah.
Thank you so much. Inshallah. Okay, and last but not least, Mr. Hadi.
Thank you for having me today for this afternoon short webinar. I hope that our viewers have learned a lot from the three of us, because I definitely have learned a lot from our speaker, Mr. Ashraf, and Teacher Farah. I hope that you shouldn't be afraid of using technology in the classroom. At the end of the day, we should always put children's first and their interests and their participation in the classroom. And I hope that in the long run, we won't be too dependent on technology. We won't be too comfortable in where we are right now, but we hope to continue learning and growing together. And so for the children. Thank you once again. I've learned a lot from the two of you as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hadi.
Likewise, Mr. Hadi and thank you.
So if you want to stay in touch with our speakers and connect with them on a deeper level, please do follow their pages. For Mr. Hadi, Ilham Childcare, Teacher Farah, Genius Aulad, and Mr. Ashraf at Aimsparke. And thank you once again to all of our guest speakers, Mr. Ashraf, Madam Farah, and Mr. Hadi for joining us for the Ilham Goes Digital webinar. Thank you everyone who managed to register and join us today. My team will also leave the full recording of this webinar on our YouTube page, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you love seeing content revolving around early childhood and development. We hope to see you again in our future webinars, and take care. Assalamualaikum. Bye. Tata titi tutu.